Yeah, as of right now.
All right.
As of right now, we are setting things up on YouTube and then we're going to flip over to Facebook. Hold 1 second, folks. So you'll be able to watch us live on YouTube and watch us live on Facebook.
As of right now.
So 1 second. Get this straight. Yep. Okay. And then I gotta share this. And then we're gonna be rocking and rolling. Post to Facebook. Okay. And good morning. Good Friday morning on the most solemn day in the Christian calendar. This is Good Friday. My name is Darswell Rogers, and you have reached WIDU Wake Up and the Grow Your Business Today program. You're listening to us not only on the WIDU Radio Network, but on my Facebook page, as well as on my CFP Innovation YouTube channel. So we've got it covered today. And my guest this morning, if he would just stop putting his hand in front of the camera, I would introduce him. He's distracting me. is my good friend Mike McCullum, the small biz doctor. Good morning, Mike.
I forgot you can see that on your end too.
Good, Mike. Good morning, Mike. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well, man. I'm doing well. It's a little chilly, but I'm doing well.
This 50-degree weather in April is not working for me at all. Actually, it's not even 50 yet. The high today is going to be 50, but it will be a sunny 50 here in the Sand Hills region.
Believe it or not, I like the chilly weather. I like the chill. I like the four seasons, man. I like the four seasons. You're trying to be a California man all the time, but I lived out there too. But you can get to enjoy this nice chilly weather at times. Does the body good?
Listen, I did chilly from November through March. April's supposed to be warm. Let's just leave it at that. Okay. I got no problem
True
with the
that.
season.
True that.
It's April. I'm not riding my bike in under 50-degree weather. I'm not playing golf in under 50-degree weather. I'm going to work today anyway. So, but maybe a walk. I can walk in 50-degree weather. So we'll see. So anyway, we've got a couple of 2 or 3 topics we want to talk about this morning. I do, and I want to kick off with the NCAA. I want to spend a good chunk of time and talking about beliefs within the context of how social media is influencing our beliefs. But let me cover a couple of Black Enterprise daily notes that I picked up. Master P, the hip hop mogul, his son Hersey Miller has decided he's a basketball recruit. He got recruited by Vanderbilt and UCLA and LSU. Has decided to take his talents out of high school to Tennessee State University, a historically Black college.
Whoa!
So this is a trend. It's not a big trend yet for some of the top scholastic athletes to decide to go to historically Black colleges instead of going to the Power 5 conferences. And because so many dollars flow with the African American athlete into the Power 5 conferences, and they're not necessarily focused on the student and their well-being as much, and B, are not necessarily funding the educational outcomes of African Americans. And so I want to give him great kudos in terms of having made this decision. Just for the record, Tennessee State is where Oprah Winfrey graduated from. It's also where Rob Covington and John Morant, who's they're both with the Trailblazers and the Memphis Grizzlies, went to school. So I'll stop there. Mike, your thoughts on
I look at the whole thing. I look at the whole thing, and I like the movement. I like the where it's going. I like that, at least the idea of change or being open to certain things in a different direction is good, because a lot of things have been canned, and we know that. But some movement is better than no movement. So I'm complete in support with that. So if they can come up with something even better, I support that well.
Well, I think at the end of the day, what we have to consider is that where we spend our dollars matter, right? So I look at this within the broad context of financial well-being and economic empowerment. Where we spend our dollars matter, and where we can entice other people to spend their dollars matter. We know that a dollar does not stay in the African American community even 12 hours. It's probably more like 2 or 3 hours. And it's the ability of a dollar to roll over in your community multiple times. That's where wealth gets generated.
Yes.
And we know how powerful sports are in terms of the expending of money. So if suddenly the top recruits in basketball and football decide they wanted to go to Fayetteville State and North Carolina A&T and Howard University and Tennessee State and Morehouse, versus going to Clemson and Carolina and
USC,
UCLA,
or
then all of a sudden you have made a significant shift in the financial well-being of certain organizations and institutions.
Yes.
It's simply a function of becoming more conscious of where you spend your money.
Well, I mean, it's a spillover effect, and I mean, when you get to that, if they go into the HBCUs, and understand when you go into that, when you got great players that go into those particular schools, then your ticket sales, goes off the chain. Your hotels, the hotels and motel area, the economy goes off the chain, because people have to stay somewhere when they come in to visit. The restaurants, I mean, so it's a spillover effect all into the economy. But unless you have something that's a magnet to draw that to that, like we went to Howard University. I mean, there are certain times where Howard was really good in their football teams and, back and forth. And you can tell when the teams are good, their stands are packed. I mean, when they're not good, but it's that way. So in any time when you put that in the sports, even in the college, it's the spillover effect in any particular area. But you have to have that magnet to be able to bring those students, those great players to your school. The problem is, what is that magnet?
That's where the question comes in. Let's not forget the TV contract, which is actually where the bulk of the cash is coming from. It's from the TV contracts. And then when you have notable performers or people, graduates from your school, it attracts other students to come to that school.
Exactly.
We'll just, one of the more recent obvious moves has been our current vice president being a Howard University grad. Applications to Howard went up 5-fold.
Really? I knew you'd throw that in there somewhere. Howard University grad. I knew you plotted it.
I mean, the Mecca is the Mecca. I can't help if the Mecca is the Mecca.
You're a bison for life, huh?
Howard University. So I think this is a great segue. So I think that's a real positive. And he's not the first young man who was a 5-star or 4-star athlete to make that decision. I think it's something that we need to talk up a lot more at the high school level. Ironically, and this is a little segue. I've got a good friend who went to USC and went to Mills College and out west, and she's got her little group of girlfriends. And as they've become aware recently of all these HBCU graduates, the Attorney General of New York is an HBC graduate. The mayor of Atlanta is an HBC graduate. This woman down in Fulton County that is doing this investigation into the former president's influence over the Georgia election is an HBCU graduate. That vice president is an HBCU graduate. They're like, how come we didn't know about going to HBCUs when we were in school? Yeah, being out on the West Coast or whatever, it wasn't even something that you thought about. Many folks thought about it. So she's like, "How come I didn't know?"
I know. It's pretty
So
straight, pretty straightforward.
yeah, well, I'm forgiving you, Mike, having grown up across the street from Howard University. You probably last place you wanted to go, right? You wanted to
Oh
get out
yes,
of town.
yes. I saw you little snobby Howard University boys walk up and down the street with your nose in the air, So I was like, I don't want to go there. I want to
You,
go
you,
somewhere
you,
real.
you must have confused us with somebody else. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Nah, Howard. I have a lot of great friends from Howard University. It's always been a great school for me. I've been there, went to a million games, basketball, football, but that's where I grew up. So I didn't want to stay in the same place, So I wanted to go somewhere else. Yes.
So this is a perfect segue to sticking with the college question in one of the debates that we've had on multiple occasions.
Yes.
Is college athletics. The Supreme Court. There was a hearing before the Supreme Court this last week. And the question in front of the court is whether the NCAA deserves special relief from normal antitrust rules in order to protect its educational mission and preserve a tradition of amateurism in college sports. And they said the court's expected to rule on this sometime this summer. So what's your take on give folks a little bit of a background? Did you do some homework on this one?
We've talked about this a zillion times. I don't have to do a whole bunch of homework. I know what the meat and potatoes are in this. But yes, I've looked it up. But it's the simple thing that you and I keep saying. It's a decision that if can cause problems, but it can be good as well. It depends on what side of the fence you're on and what you're willing to do. That's basically it. So they're looking at it in significant questions, arose about the athlete compensation limits. So they're asking, should we compensate them? How much should we compensate them? But at the same time, a lot of concern presented that challenges that you're going out the limits could destroy college sports altogether. It's saying that if you do that, if you bring money in there to make it what you were saying. Okay, let's go back. Let's push rewind. You're saying going to the HBCUs, you're going to the schools that people love. You're going to the schools that maybe their parents have gone to, that they've graduated from. So a lot of that is flowing in there. When you put money into it, for me anyway, when you start putting money into it, it changes the dynamics of the sports. It changes the dynamics of where are you going to a school that you really love, or you're just chasing the dollar. It kind of goes into that. That's my position on it. But the benefits, they're requested. The courts are asking for their cash payments for various academic achievements, scholarships to complete undergraduate degrees at any school, asking for paid internships after they have completed their eligibility. There's a lot that goes along with that. It's just like, hey, you come to my school, I'm going to pay you a couple of bucks. There's just something that goes along with that.
Well, let me say this. This got to the Supreme Court because the lower court ruled that the NCAA did need or could, I don't know if it was, could pay for all these additional expenses that had not been previously allowable under amateur rules. And the colleges are coming back questioning why the government should be able to dictate to them what they can and can't pay. And then the argument came back from Justice Kagan, well, aren't you really attempting to price fix? Aren't you really, on the flip side of it, you can say, why? Well, on the one hand, why should the government say, yes, you should pay for X, A, B, and C? And on the other hand, it says, well, aren't you in effect colluding together to fix the cost of your labor source, which is generating billions of dollars in income? And for me, it's not even a close call. As you know, I think that they should pay the athletes, because look at the percentage of the athletes that graduate. A huge percentage of them, they use their talents, don't get an education, and then they throw them by the wayside because they got injured or they weren't good enough, and they're like, thanks so much for having put multi-million dollars into my pocket. And all those Power Five coaches are millionaires,
Well,
and the
I mean,
kids are walking into that with nothing.
I look at that. I do see. I mean, I'm swayed a little bit. I can see both sides of this. I can see that, but
at least that's the shift, because you weren't seeing, but
I
you
know.
weren't seeing both sides
I
before.
know. I know.
And
the reason
all
I
right.
say I can see both sides of this. I can see some level of compensation for that, but I just look at it this way, and this is the problem, the main problem that I tell you I always have. It's like you hired for a company, okay, for a job at your company. They give you the job description, they give you your income, they give you what you're supposed to do, the whole 9 yards, everything, and you accept it. You sign the agreement, you go in you're on human resources, you put everything is, we give you the insurance, we give you the whole 9 yards. You say okay to everything. You get in there, sign it, you get in there, a year after you're there, year and a half after year, you find out the company that you're working for made an extra $10 million. So now you go back and say, wait a minute. I know I signed this agreement. I know I signed this agreement that said that you're going to pay for my academic, for my scholarships, whatever the case is. However, because you're making money, now I want to make money. The agreement was that we would pay for your academics, your room and board, your food, your this and this and this in return of your full scholarship that other people have to pay full money for out of their pocket. And to me, that's a good spinoff, because a lot of these schools, a lot of the inter-college schools, some of these people will have never, ever, ever been able to get into some of these schools. So in return of your being paid for your scholarships, you're going to now be able to get into UCLA, you're going to be able to get into USC, Florida, whatever the case is. That's going to up your ante right there alone. But it's like when you get in there, now it's like, okay, I did sign this. I did come to you. I did agree to this with you. But because you're making money off of me, I want to make more money now. I mean, it looks at it, but at the same time, they are making money on the students. It would be. This is the problem, Darswell. Money always causes problems and things. You know that it kind of destroys things.
Always?
Always.
No, always.
Always. No. So what happens in this situation? You got your top students, your top players on the basketball team, they're going great. What happens to the person on gymnastics? What happened to the person that came to the school to sign up for fencing or whatever the case is? Their scholarship, they're athletes too. It's not going to get a penny to them. It's going to go to the football players, the basketball players who are making the school money. So what do you look at that student and say, you're good at what you do, but you're not worth any money. I want to pay you any money. That's where it goes into the situation, the problem that I have. If it's going to be that way, it has to be a system that pays all the athletes. You just can't pick and choose which one because they make you money. That's my position.
Okay, so it's just a shame that your position is full of all distorted facts.
It's not distorted at all. It ain't.
So let's see if we can get some factual information into this conversation, because clearly you are.
No. Clearly, you don't want to accept it.
Well, hold on. Now, was I quiet while you talked? I allowed you to talk.
Let's go.
Let me talk. Okay. So number one, when you get a scholarship, you do not get a guaranteed 4-year scholarship. You get a scholarship so long as you are capable of performing. So they will snatch that scholarship from you as soon as you are not worth, or they don't see the value in you. Okay. Mm-hmm. So there is no 4-year ride, which is what you suggested. You might have just misspoke, but it's not a 4-year ride. That scholarship goes year to year. Okay.
Yes.
That's number one. Number two, the student, if you are in any other area other than sports, you can be given a scholarship. You could be a dancer, you could be a musician, you could be a computer scientist with a quote scholarship, which if you hit certain landmarks like sports would be for the entire term. You can, even though you are a student, go out and market your services and earn as much money as your services will allow. Even though you are training as a ballerina or a musician at the university, if a professional organization wants to pay you, you can go and earn all you want. It's only the athlete that they are attempting to keep to place in this quote unquote amateur status. And in my opinion, it's because of the income streams that were being made by the larger institutions. Now, there's a lot of so that's the second thing. The third thing is, if I am always subject to violation of these rules, but yet and still, and I think the last time we talked about this, Mike, we were in a situation where we had students that were traveling for some sort of holiday festival, and they weren't even given sufficient money to like make sure that they could eat good meals um, during this time. I see nothing wrong with saying, look, you are making me billions. You certainly should not have to struggle for food, for housing, or for transportation.
I agree.
And hold on, and since you're making me billions, I am going to give you the right, even if you don't finish your degree right now, you can come back and get that degree at any point, give them 10 years, whatever, if you don't get it. There are certain things that they should have. And then my last point was, you made the analogy if you pay somebody a certain amount of money, and then later on you found out that the organization made a heck of a lot more money. You want to come back and say, wait a minute, I want a new deal. I have two issues with that. A, people do that all the time, right? People say, wait a minute, we would need to renegotiate this deal because this is way more lucrative for you than I realized. That happens all the time in business. And I don't know why we should exclude the student athletes from that. That's number one. And number two, the student athlete is staring at how much money the university is making. This isn't a situation where they're surprised. The coach is making $8-10 million a year when he's sitting in your house recruiting you. He knows, wait a minute, you're making all this money. You're gonna sell my likeness. You're going to put me on TV so you guys can make money. And I'm supposed to have to struggle day in and day out, year in and year out? Doesn't make sense. As far as I'm concerned, amateurism is a little bit of a joke. And that what you should really do is go ahead, and to your point about the gymnasts and the rest of them, the entire university is being funded, even beyond the scholarship or the other scholarship programs by some of the major colleges. So yeah, I think you should work something out with everybody. It does. I'm not trying to. I do not think a college athlete should get rich, but they certainly should not be wanting for the basics.
I, as I said to you before, I am in total. I said this before. Don't try to make it sound like I was saying the student should go down there and just struggle and live on the street as long as they got a scholarship. I was not saying that. That was never my point. But I said, I wish there were a way, it was a way that you could take that. I don't think if you got the student come there and they're going to the school, they should not want financially. And what I mean about where they live and what they eat and, whatever the case is, no, I am totally agreeing to that. They should not want that because they are there. You're bringing them there to say, and you're giving them all these visions of grandeur when the person is there, recruiting you. It's so great to come to Yale, Princeton, this, that, these schools. And when you get there, we got you, but now you got to struggle to get a hot dog. I mean, I understand that. So I am in total agreement with that. They should. The problem I have, we just saw what happened as well in just a month ago, 2 months ago, when they had these court filings. Look what happened to college when the parents were willing to spend millions of dollars just to get their kid to go to a school, just for a school to say, I will accept you. You're not making the school a penny. You're not an athlete. You're not just for the sake of saying, I got accepted to UCLA. I got accepted to Princeton, Yale, whatever the case is. I'm willing to give you millions. And these schools are turning down millions of dollars because it's not enough. Up your ante and I'll accept your kid in school. They had court cases and all this stuff. It's already in the situation. Can you imagine what's going to happen if they put money with the sports? every little I'm not going to say this, and I mean this in the way, every little creature that can crawl out is going to come out, and they're going to figure out. And this is what's going to happen, in my opinion. You're going to start seeing the best players go to the handful of the best schools. And why? Because the most money to pay that parent, I give you, or that school, I give you $2 million to come to our school. Oh, and I give you $3 million to come to our school. Where does it stop? Where does it stop?
Well,
and where does it go to kid who's also doing gymnastics, who spent just as much time in school, doing all their hard work? They're not getting the penny. How do you look them in the face and say, yeah, you're good and you're a great athlete, but you're not worth any money?
well, you know, this is
how do you do that?
Raises, well, hold on. This raises some very interesting topics that I want to cover with you. But we're going to take a break here at the bottom of the hour and get in a couple of commercials and come back here in just a few minutes. So you're listening to WIDU Wake Up, and so while the radio station is on commercial break, let me just say this, Mike. The dynamics of the way school works is, in my mind, been permanently changed. The pandemic has changed it. The idea that you are going to pay very large sums of money to sit on a college campus and go to a dorm, there's going to be a split in how that works. Some people are going to want to continue to do that. But this whole idea of online learning and, in my opinion, universities having to rethink their financial model, their business model, is going to have some pretty profound implications. And it could work very favorably, and I think it will work very favorably for the top schools, because one of the main reasons why the top schools are, if you will, so exclusive is you only can put so many kids in a room. But with online learning, you can significantly scale the number of students that you can admit.
Yes.
And there is a college there's a 4-year or 2-year college that is going out of business or merging one a week right now. And that's been going on for a couple of years. So we're seeing the real struggles already in the university system. And it's because they've got a lot of an ivory tower mindset, right? They're so insular to the competitions of the world, and they're not paying attention to what's really taking place. And industry has been saying to universities for some time now that you're not producing the quality of employee that I'm looking for.
Exactly.
And so those who are not focused on what the new reality looks like, I mean, these are profoundly different situations. And so your point about who's going to pay a lot of money to get their kid in school and the athletes, I think those are all very interesting questions. And I think there's going to be a shakeout in the university system.
Yeah, I mean, I truly wish there were a way, it was a way to, I think every student, every scholarship that is, so obviously you're giving them first of all, we need to go back and understand the dynamics of why scholarships are there. Scholarships are not there to make you better, it's scholarships to make them better. I mean, if you look at it, they make it look at their rating system. The GPA system goes up, the quality of the graduates going in and going out. So it's a betterment for them. You benefit from the student, of course, but they make it try to sound like, scholarships are for the kids and we're doing all this great stuff for the kids. Okay, we understand the real deal of that. But at the same time, we got it. I just have this fear factor with putting money in this thing. I do. I just have, and I just see it.
The money's already there.
I mean, in this level, you up front, I'm going to pay you. Where does it stop? I mean, that's the only thing. Then you look at the little schools, who you said the smaller schools are already closing. So what do? They don't have they're sitting there trying to worry about if they can pay the chancellor, the dean, the dean of academics. They're trying to pay their salary. Now you're going to have to try to figure out how they're going to pay this athlete too. It can be difficult.
Well, this is an interesting point that you make. This is probably the best point that you've made, because I really, for instance, we were talking a little bit about the HBCUs, and it'd be great if some of the top athletes would go to, historically Black colleges. They clearly don't have the sort of cash to drop on these students, right? So unless you can get some significant shift, you need a significant shift in those students that would come at once, that would in effect move TV revenue in their direction. It would be very hard for them to pull it off. But you know what? Nothing's easy, Mike.
No.
But the world is moving so fast. Technology is moving so fast. The way things play out today is moving so quickly that it is really going to be a challenge to know. Let's put it this way: you're going to have to keep your ear to the ground to figure out where the trends are. The status quo, the same old. It worked last week, therefore it'll work next week. Those sorts of realities, and more people just really need to understand how the shifts are profoundly impacting the entire world. And we've seen it with Zoom, we've seen it with the pandemic, but it caused that shock to the system. But there's been many shocks taking place for years, and it's accelerating.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it. I mean, if you go on to say where a school, a college that may have had LeBron James there, and you may have all the rest of the team. It's LeBron James and the rest of the team. So it's if he in college, you give him $1 million.
You froze up on me, folks. Mike, you coming back? So we've been talking about college athletics. The Supreme Court heard a case by the NCAA dealing with. Are you back, Mike? No? Okay, you're back. You were gone there for a minute.
Oh, okay.
The Supreme Court. There was a lower court ruling that basically said that the NCAA has to pay or can pay certain expenses of the student athlete, which would include things like summer internships. And they said the payments had to be educationally oriented. And the NCAA's argument is, well, what the heck does educationally oriented look like? And so they're saying, no, you should not have the government dictating how we pay our athletes. And the arguments coming back from the justices was, well, it sounds to me like you guys are colluding to fix the costs of your labor force. And so how should you view this? What's the appropriate remedy? So it's going to be an interesting and fascinating decision. They're saying it'll be late spring or summer when it comes out. There's no doubt that when it does, Mike, the two of us are going to have a conversation about it, because you never know.
Well, I mean, let's look at what the NCAA's position. The NCAA says that the legal precedents and the law itself should allow the NCAA to set the compensation rules.
Yes, which is collusion. They're colluding, though.
Here you go with your colluding, because the benefits having a choice between pro and amateur sports. The public benefits from having between pro and amateur sport. Pro is pay, amateur sports for us. For me, I don't know. I just look at this thing. I look at you as just something in your gut, something you want. Look how they play when they go to the colleges, man. It's a different feel when the students are winning together. They're like, in college, it's money. I mean, in pros, it's money. I'm just going to who's going to pay me the best money. I don't care if I like anybody on this team whatsoever. Or y'all hate me. I don't care. Give me the check, or I'm going somewhere else. I don't want that to go into pros to amateur.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go back, because this whole amateurism played out in the Olympics as well. If you remember, the track and field athletes were used to be in a situation where they could not accept. They had to train and they had to compete year round, but in order to maintain their amateur status for the Olympics, they could not earn a income off of what they did for a living, and they had all these limitations. And finally, the Olympics said, you know what? We are not in a position to maintain or keep quality athletes, particularly from the democracies, because what would happen if you were in the Soviet Union or China, they would give you a job in the military. So that was technically your job, but all day, every day, all you did was train for sports. So in order for countries like the US or England or Europe or whatever to compete, that where we don't have a structure like that, they had to finally relent and allow there to be for athletes. Now we're gone beyond the college period, right? For athletes to be able to earn an income while they were competing as an amateur. And then they finally just broke the whole thing down and said, you know what? This whole construct doesn't make any sense, which is why now you have the dream team for basketball playing in the Olympics. But so I really just I think you're going to end up with two levels of paid compensation. You're going to have the unlimited paid compensation based upon, if you are the superstar of all superstars, LeBron James or whoever, you're going to make ridiculous amounts of money, and the marketplace is going to dictate what you earn. And then at the what we're going to call the college level, you're going to have an income stream that should put in ultimately those students in a position where they don't have any basic financial needs. They should have a decent car, they should have a decent apartment, they should have food all the time, and they should have the ability, if you put them in a scholarship situation initially, where no matter what happens, they can get through 4 years of school. And that's all I'm asking for. I'm not asking for the moon. I'm asking for the basics. And if you're
You're
going to
just
school in New
you're
York
just
City,
such a nice guy, Darswell. You're
if
just
you're
such a
going to New
nice
York,
guy.
if you're in New York City, that is a different amount of money than if you were going in Tupelo, Mississippi. The number doesn't have to be the same. Okay. So, but let's switch topics here for a second. Um, we have had such a tremendous. We'll talk about our belief systems here, and this is not about faith. This is about the rest of your belief systems. There's a young man I want to encourage everybody to go look up. His name is Tristan Harris, and he's created an organization called the Center for Humane Technology. And if you have Netflix, he's one of the prominent people in a Netflix documentary called Social Dilemma. And what he's talking about is how social media, our phones, our computers are influencing what it is that we believe. And one of the most profound, there's a couple of very profound things he said, and I might open this up for your conversation. He says, you can have a husband and wife that vote exactly the same way, like exactly the same programs, eat exactly the same things, but when they go and so you would assume that based on artificial intelligence, that when they looked at their Facebook feed or when they looked at their social media feed or Google, that the ads would be very similar. And the reality is that they're totally different, is because because the technology that they're currently using in social media customizes what you get to entice you to keep your eyes glued to their device.
Mm-hmm.
We are being manipulated. This guy, Tristan Harris, argued that we have these arguments over whether or not the 2020 election was fair or whether or not there was manipulation. His contention is we were all manipulated. Every single one of us has been manipulated through social media. And the key point that he makes is that whatever it is that you click on, they're going to feed you more and more and more and more and more of that.
Exactly.
Right. I happened to the other day, the golf season is here. And so, my social media feed has been full of political stuff, at post-election has been full of kind of my interest in my professional things around consulting and agility. That's been a dominant part of what shows up, and plus my interest in music, right?
Right.
I clicked on 2 videos about 2 weeks ago related to golf. All of a sudden, I'm being inundated with golf, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the same thing can be true with the way we get manipulated and all sorts of other things. One of the points that he made in an interview I saw, as it relates to what they call the big lie, right, which is that the election was false.
Right.
He said that if you click on something related to one conspiracy theory, they're going to continually give you and feed you additional conspiracy theory ideas.
Yes.
So
Yes.
if you click on, hey, Trump lost the election, then you can be assured that you're going to get the QAnon. Then you can be sure you're going to get
Yeah.
all the other things. Bigfoot exists,
Uh-huh.
if you will.
Uh-huh. Well, if you
They're going
believe
to
that,
feed
believe this.
you. If you are a conspiracy theorist, they're going to continue to feed you things that will support conspiracy theories.
I mean,
If
it's
you
looking at the
believe that
cookie.
Biden was whatever, then you're going to continue to get fed that, whereby you're certain that your perspective is accurate and that everybody else is a little bit wacko.
Right, because they're going to continue to feed you that. And there are certain networks, and we know there's certain news networks that continuously will feed you that. I mean, some people sit there and watch these networks all day long. I've gone into, I have a next door neighbor that I absolutely adore, him and his wife, and I talk to them all the time out in the yard. They're wonderful people. One day they invited me in to go over and, eat some pie or something like that. This family pie. I was there probably 3 hours. The whole time blasting was F news, and whatever. And just listening to it, because I don't really listen to, Fox News, but I listened to it in the back, and I'm just like listening to all of this stuff over and over and over again. I'm just like, is this why the people are thinking all this kind of stuff so much? Because it was, all these, we found this crack, we found this, we did this and this and this, but you have all these things, but nothing can be proven over this entire time frame that this has all been fake, this has been that, and this is just being embedded in them the entire time. So I just asked them, I said, do you guys believe all of this? And I was like, yeah, it wouldn't be on television if it wasn't true. So what do you say? Well, they have to go through and they have to get rights to do this, so they can't lie through the news. The news.
Well, here's what I want to be. But the main point I want to make, and we went down the Trump stolen election scenario. What I just want to emphasize is it doesn't matter what you currently like to watch. If you watch CNN or MSNBC, or if you are just into a certain sort of beauty supply, or if you're into a certain sort of athletic material attire, they're going to continue to feed you whatever it is that you click on. And so they're distorting your choice, right? And if you go to the documentary Social Dilemma, this guy, Tristan Harris, who worked for Google at the time, wrote a fairly extensive analysis of the manipulation that he felt that the company was doing, and was advocating that they develop strategies to allow people to have more free choice, to allow them to disengage from the platform, because that was better for their well-being, right? Mm-hmm. But it wasn't good for profits. It wasn't good for profits. And so it's a drug. Your phone is a drug.
Yes. Not only does it pick you up, it picks up the information and then it sells your information to other networks at the same time. So it's cycling around. People ask, what are cookies and what are this and this and that? And I'm like, you have to understand exactly whenever you advertise for something, that's true. You advertise something, you're looking for a certain type of dog or whatever the case is. You put that dog in, and now all of a sudden you're getting commercials of pet food and pediatricians. I mean, there's a lot you can get out of that when you start looking at certain things. But you're right. You're subject to a lot of advertisements whenever you go and search anything on Google or more. You're subject to it. Some are good though. Some are good. Some are not so good.
And so Google is the biggest offender. They're the biggest beast. If you use Chrome, you are, and I use Chrome. You are with the biggest surveiller of your behavior on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
Facebook is right there with them.
Yep.
But what's interesting is that there's a couple of web browsers that you can use that do not track your privacy that way. One of them is called, interestingly enough, DuckDuckGo.com. So you can go to DuckDuckGo, and they don't track you all over the internet. There's another one called Bravo, Bravo,
Mm-hmm.
and they don't track you all over the internet. Now, some of the challenges that you'll have is depending upon where you go. Like for instance, because I have a restaurant in New York, we use Uber Eats and Grubhub. They do delivery for us. Some of those apps don't work as well if you're not using Chrome, because they've kind of geared themselves to Chrome or Internet Explorer. But for your basic searching, if you can avoid using Safari or Chrome, just from the point of view of maintaining more of your privacy, these are a couple of interesting options that I'm advocating. I have used DuckDuckGo in the past. I think when my computer crashed or something, because it's not as easy. I just want to be clear, but I haven't used it in several years, and so I'm going to download it and attempt to incorporate it. It took extra effort, and we're into convenience, right?
Right.
But I think that it is really important for us to get educated about this. So the Netflix series is called Social Dilemma, and what they basically have, aside from Tristan Harris on there, they have all of these people who work for these major media companies. And among the things that they ask them is, do you allow your child to have unfettered access to the internet? And they all universally said, no way.
Wow.
Absolutely, positively, no way. Because it's antisocial, right? I mean, look, if you walk into a restaurant today, so forget the kids for a second, you walk to a restaurant today, how many people are having a conversation versus how many people are sitting at a table together, but everybody's staring at their phone?
Oh, I had that. I told you about that. I think it was these couples. There's two couples, and we were there. I was there with my wife and daughter, and sitting there, and we were there for probably about maybe a good hour. And I tell you, not a single word was discussed at this table. It was two guys and two girls, and they were all four of them had their cell phones out. I think they were probably texting to each other on there, and it's getting that way. But it gets to be a little much. It gets to be a little much with these phones. But also another thing that people have to understand is what I got upset is one day I came home and I get this a text or email that telling me basically where all the places I've been. They said you were you were at Chipotle for 45 minutes. You went to Walmart for 10 minutes. You went to here. And I'm getting these commercials. I'm getting these ads from these places now. So not only are they doing that, when you keep your location on your phone, they are tracking everywhere you go, and they know exactly how much time you spent there, and then they go through it. So it's a lot of different things. So turn that location time sometimes off.
Well, the bad news, they've done some analysis with these phones. You can have your phone completely off and travel around, and then turn your phone back on, and they still know where you've been.
Oh my goodness. Oh, man. So it's a no-win situation here.
We're in Big Brother land for real. 1984. We are absolutely being tracked. We're being manipulated. I saw an interview with Tristan Harris. I want to go back and share something with him that I thought was really fascinating, Mike. He said that that if you looked at whites, blacks, Hispanics, and Asians, and you looked at the spread of those people who identified themselves as conservative, moderate, and liberal, that generally speaking, there was a fairly common spread in terms of, so in other words, there's a significant number of African Americans that would identify themselves as conservative, as Latinas that would categorize themselves as conservative, but when you go to party affiliation, they're not in the Republican Party. The Republican Party has so walled itself off, presumably, is what's happening, whereby even those people who think conservatively don't identify with the party. So they're a little bit without a country. So they're either unaffiliated or they're Democrats, simply because the Republican Party is, they use the term conservative for that party. Of course, in the age of Donald Trump, their conservatism has been somewhat questionable, given all the spending that they did. But it speaks for me, going back to beliefs, it speaks for me the fact that a two-party system doesn't really cover where the electorate is. And I look at this a little bit like the NCAA. The Democrats and Republicans have been controlling the way states elect candidates, right? They're basically things like they create certain requirements, like in order to get on the ballot, you've got to have X number of signatures, or in order to be a third party candidate, like they keep third party candidates from getting on the debate stage, right? Because and the way they create the winner take all for the president of the United States, these winner take all approaches keeps from fractionalizing the political environment. So if you had a situation where, which would look more like a parliamentary system, arguably, but let's go with a scenario where we'll take the state of North Carolina here for a second, and just say, okay, for all of the legislative, there's 13 House seats in North Carolina. Imagine if they went into one big pool, and the 13, the candidates with the 13 highest vote totals were the 13 representatives for the state of North Carolina. Right now, the split is 10 Republican, 3 Democrat. Right?
Really?
But it's because they've gerrymandered the districts, whereby there's strong majorities for Democrats in 3 districts, which is basically because of strong African American representation. And the rest of them, they figured out how to string them together, whereby they're majority Republican. So imagine if just the 13 people who were the most popular in the state got the 13 seats. You would probably end up with a Libertarian Party, you'd end up with Republican Party, you'd end up with Democrats, you'd end up with some people who were just like, hey, I'm unaffiliated, but I'm sufficiently popular.
Right.
So, I mean, there's so many different ways to re-envision the way we manage our democracy. I think
something has to happen, because the
two-party system doesn't work. I don't relate. I don't feel a strong connection either way.
It's too much. It's too much bickering. Everything is, it's almost like the third person, which is the citizens of the United States, are overlooked. It's like Republicans against Democrats, Democrats against Republicans. What about, okay, can you talk about, they're this. Can you talk about us? What's good for America, not what's good for Democrats or Republicans?
Because, by the way, infrastructure, which is now the topic, is critical. Our infrastructure, that's an investment in our country. Okay. We have gone from having first world top infrastructure in the world to having some of the crappiest infrastructure in the world. And it's because the politicians can't get together around how to make those investments.
Right.
It is critical. And we literally have the Republican Party saying, we will not vote for this bill, period. Now, the bill's got stuff in it, and how they're funding the bill, they have problems with it. But the idea that you're just going to say no, that there's no ability to arrive at solutions that will support us, because we've had a need for infrastructure improvement for decades, literally decades. But that's for another day. We've reached the top of the hour.
There you
Mike,
go.
I appreciate you having hung out with me today. For sure, when the Supreme Court comes back and concludes that everything I've been saying was right,
right. We'll see.
We'll have you back, bro. But listen, you enjoy a good Friday. Enjoy the Easter weekend. Thanks for hanging out with me this morning. We'll see you down the road.
No doubt. No doubt.
And
Have a great weekend, everyone. Take care.
All right, everybody, take